Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the world of Enthador and the tales of the dwarven civilization known as the Oaken Flags. I'm Marcus Aurelius, and this is Dwarf Fortress version 0.43, and we will soon be delving the undersea fortress of Lostknowledge. But before we get to that, let's summarize the story thus far. In the far southwest of Enthador lies a mountain range known as the Fair Axe. And it is in this range that the dwarves of the Oaken Flags built their home. In the untamed wilds, far, far from the dwarven ancestral homelands to the northeast, the mountains of the Persuasive Horns, the Oaken Flags live a difficult life. They are constantly at war with the nearby goblin civilization known as the Mangy Spider, who are led by a three-eyed demon known as Oleg Gutsflyer. The dwarves have been getting the worst of this battle thus far, and so one day, in the halls of the Oaken Flags, appeared a dwarf by the name of Marcus Aurelius, a dwarven architect who offered to build fortresses to help the dwarves turn the tide against the Mangy Spider. The first of such fortresses was located just out of sight of the goblin capital in the Courageous Dunes, and it was known as Sand Pillar. Sand Pillar was built from the ground up to be a military fortress and saw many successes, defeated the goblins in multiple battles, and even slew a dragon, a great beast from the legends and myths of times past. However, due to dwarven hubris and folly, a great civil war took place at Sand Pillar, where a group of malcontents attempted to overthrow the government. It was contained, but the dwarven spirit was irreparably harmed, and now, though it still stands, the fortress of Sand Pillar is staffed mainly by mercenaries, sellswords, and other soldiers of fortune. The dwarves of the Oaken Flags, in a desire to get back to nature and rediscover their gods, hoping that doing so would bring them safety, went up to the jungles of speech near the Elven lands to the northwest and founded the city of Forestholm. Now, this city was intended to be a place for commerce and trade and worship where the dwarves could live peaceful lives. But it was not to be. Unfortunately, the Mangy Spider continued their attack, and the town was forced to militarize heavily. It was a great success, however, and the tall and sturdy walls of Forestholm repulsed large goblin invasions, the likes of which even Sand Pillar had not ever seen. Those walls still stand strong. However, during the time of Sand Pillar and Forestholm, the Mangy Spider still increased their attack. Dwarven villages were pillaged, dwarven halls were lost, and it was determined that even if individual fortresses were strong enough to stop the tide, priceless artifacts and tomes filled with dwarven knowledge were being destroyed and lost. It was determined then that a new fortress needed to be created, a fortress where the wealth of knowledge of the Oaken Flags could be stored safely beneath the gaze of Oleg Gutsflyer. Marcus Aurelius proposed a fortress beneath the oceans far to the east, in a horrible blighted land where the wealth of knowledge of the Oaken Flags could be stored safely. Poring over the maps, the dwarves of the Oaken Flags chose a small peninsula sticking out into the untoward seas, known for its horrific rain and filled with the stench of death, precisely the place the three-eyed demon would never expect. And so, a group of 7 hardy dwarves was sent out to investigate and lay the foundations of this fortress, which was to be known as Lostknowledge. And that is the tale that we are now going to tell. Before we get on to building the majestic fortress, hopefully not train wreck, of Lostknowledge, there are some people without whose help this project would not be possible, and I'd like to thank them. First of all, you probably saw the amazing new title card artwork. It is absolutely beautiful. It's so evocative of the location, and I'd like to thank Dwarf Comic for putting that together and putting up with a lot of last-minute editing revisions on my part. I will link to Dwarf Comic's YouTube page down in the episode description, and he's also working on a Dominions 4 multiplayer campaign with me, so I highly recommend you check out his site. Also, the really cool map that I showed off in the introduction, that was done by Jimmy Fender. Jimmy Fender has been updating the map for me as we move from one fortress to another, and I cannot thank him enough. Finally, I want to show off a piece of artwork that was actually made for our last fortress, for Forest Home, but I forgot to show it off when I had the opportunity. But it does highlight one of the most epic events that took place in Forest Home, and probably the iconic event of Forest Home, and that is the one-on-one battle between Vamp McVamperson, our dwarven vampire, and an Etten, Kurla Ejabiti Ia Kameda. And if you'll recall, Vamp McVamperson slew the Etten, but in so doing took grievous wounds with which he did not survive. So I'd like to just give a great thank you to Alberto, who drew that, and thank you so much. I love it. I love the look on the Etten's face. I love the silhouette of Vamp McVamperson as he's charging at him with his spear. The whole thing is just absolutely amazing. So thank you so much, Alberto. And now, without further ado, let us begin Lostknowledge. And here is the wind-swept peninsula jutting out into the untoward seas, where our brave expedition of 7 dwarves is going to start to excavate, hopefully, the fortress of Lostknowledge. Now, as you can see, the vast majority of the map is ocean, saltwater ocean. We do have here this 2Z level peninsula, which is flat on top with some trees, which is good for us. We can get some wood. And then to the south, we have this little cove that also has a lake and a beach. Now, unlike our previous fortresses, we're not going to be doing much on the surface. We're going to get underground as soon as possible, and really all you're going to see on the surface is a little stone fortification with the entrance that leads down into the depths. Now, as you can see here, the ocean does not slant down shallowly. It's actually quite deep. So as you go further down, you've got the peninsula here, but then it recedes. But it recedes a bit more, you'll notice, in the north than in the south, which is why I have created our entrance a little bit here to the north, for 2 reasons. One, I can channel out an area to make it a bit more defensible and restrict the access to it. But also, what I really want is I want a long tunnel that will initially serve as everything. It will be where our workshops are, where our beds are. The dwarves are just going to have to get used to doing everything in this tight space. But eventually, once the fortress proper is being excavated, it will be the entrance tunnel that is defended. We're going to have ballista, we're going to have places for dwarves to shoot arrows. It's going to be where our enemies will hopefully be stopped. So going back up to the surface here, let's zoom in now. They started our wagon right here on the water's edge, which is not the best place for it, but hey, we'll make do. Dwarves aren't known for their for their genius. All right, and so the first step is we're going to cut down these trees around the entrance. We're going to dig out the entrance itself, which is going to start by being a 5x5 pit, and we're going to go kind of like a slope down until we reach here, and then we're finally going to go underground, meaning it's going to be this area is going to be covered with walls. We're going to build some stone walls and a stone ceiling, but it's basically going to be a giant hole in the ground, which is going to be the entrance to our fortress. And the entire fortress, unlike Forest Home, where the entire fortress was above ground, the entire fortress of this particular fortress, Lostknowledge, is going to be underground. We're also going to be cutting down these trees here. Eventually, I'm going to terraform a little bit so that we have a flat entrance like this, kind of. So everything that comes into our fortress has to come in like that. So let us introduce our starting 7 dwarves, because they are brave. They are brave to undertake such a dangerous expedition. We first have our leader, Grimux Onyxblade, who is also going to be a miner, because we're going to need to do a lot of mining really quick. So we have 3 miners. We also have Brick Ogre Friend, who is our broker and bookkeeper, but will start as a miner as well. Because this is a very dangerous expedition, we are going to bring a fully trained melee warrior dwarf, and that's going to be Red Fairface. Red is a hammer dwarf, and he has training in dodging and armor use, and I also brought with him some leather armor, a shield, and a warhammer. Why a warhammer? Well, because what I learned from Krugsmash, so thank you Krugsmash, is that when undead creatures are animated and come and attack you, you have to smash them up and mangle them in order to really destroy them. And the way you do that is with blunt weapons. hence the hammer. Next, we have Marcus Antonius, who is our doctor. He has skill in diagnosing and all the other doctor skills, but he's also going to start off as a miner because we need more of those. And hopefully we will not need his doctor skills for a while. Then we have Bangle Hairy Basements, who is going to eventually be our leather worker, but is starting off with some skill in farming and wood cutting to get that done until we have some migrants to fill those positions out. Then we have Henzi, who is our carpenter and mason, and Losmar, who is our weaponsmith and armorsmith, but essentially is just going to be doing whatever, farming, hauling, until we're at a point where we even need to produce weapons and armor. But we're going to have an army ready to go right away. Even if they're just wearing leather, we're going to need something. So I also brought a ton of wood and a ton of leather with this expedition. This was a very strange expedition in the sense that we didn't bring anything fancy. We didn't bring any bags, anything like that. We just brought enough food to survive and basic supplies like leather and wood to get us started right away. Because we're either going to survive or we're going to die. I mean, there's no point in bringing fancy stuff that we're not going to use for the first year or two. Because by then, we'll either be okay or we'll all be dead. So that's the plan. It is also raining repulsive goo. Just in case you're wondering, it's a lovely, lovely place we find ourselves in here. So I've got the first task set. One thing we probably should do, though, is in our military, we're going to set our Militia Commander. Actually, we should go to Nobles to do that. And that is, of course, going to be Red Fairface. And so Red is going to lead our first squad. Let's create it. Right now, they're not going to have a uniform. And I'll give Red his specific equipment right now. If I can. Okay, so we're going to... First off, armor. We're going to give him specific armor. Yak leather armor. Okay. Next, for legs, we're going to give him specific pants. Yak leather trousers. For a helm, I did bring him a metal helm. We have a copper helm. No gloves, unfortunately. I don't think I brought him boots, so he's just going to have to do what he can with that. I did bring him a shield. Thought I did anyway. Let's try that again. Shield. Specific shield. You know what? I didn't actually, because I figured we'd make him a wooden shield. You can't embark with a wooden shield, only a metal shield, and I felt that was kind of overkill. But I did bring him a weapon, which is a silver warhammer. And we're going to keep him right now over his clothing, as opposed to replacing his clothing, because I need him to wear whatever shoes he came with. And that's him. He's all set up. So as far as his schedule, he doesn't really have one. We're not going to have him set to train. He's just going to go around hauling and doing whatever, and we're going to call him into business if we need him to, but I do need him to put on his armor. Hopefully he'll do that. And what in the world is that monstrosity over there? That is a giant hamster. As if we didn't have problems enough, we have a giant hamster to deal with. It appears to be not very harmful at this moment, and it is still raining repulsive goo. Alright, so the first level has been dug out, so now we have to go and dig out the second level. Let's set the priority here at 3. No, I want channeling, please. Can you not do that? There we go. I was just doing it wrong. Okay. And we'll go with that. And the waves are starting to come up. Our horses are getting a little freaked out. In fact, I don't really want these horses. I didn't bring any animals because obviously if they die, there's a chance they might reanimate into undead monstrosities, and I just don't want to deal with that right away. But for right now, we're going to need to start a pasture for our animals. Otherwise, they're going to have a bad time. Okay, why am I not doing this right? It's not a burrow. It's been a while since I've played, so I've kind of forgotten. I'm trying to set a pasture. There we go. It's zones. Okay, we're going to set a pen pasture. And we'll put our horses there for right now. Excellent. Guys, start digging. This is our most important thing, because as soon as we get this dug out, that's where we're going to store all of our items from the wagon. Hopefully take everything from the wagon. What's your problem? An ocean wave. Brick ogre friend. I was caught in freakish weather. The horror. Oh, jeez. That's not good. A pool of repulsive goo. Yeah, this is... Well, we knew this wasn't going to be a cakewalk, right? But Brick, you're not really doing anything right now. Let's set a... Let's go back to zones here. And let's set a zone just here for everybody to hang out. No, I don't want to remove the zone. I actually want to create the zone, if that's okay with you. Meeting area. Alright, so hopefully Brick will go up here and stay out of the water. Okay, let's channel out another level. Yeah, our wagon, as you can see here, is just getting flooded. This is a terrible place to leave the wagon. I don't know why they did that. Okay. And our entrance isn't very fancy because it's mostly mud and dirt. Maybe later we can gussy it up, but for right now, again, the key is just to get underground as soon as possible. Okay. And finally, we have our last downward level before we start making it more of a tunnel and not like an open pit. Alright, we've also reached not only our first layer of stone, but also the flux stone that we've wanted so badly, so that's great. So we're going to continue going down to the slope, although now it's only going to be one slope level at a time. Come on. Alright. So already starting off a flux stone, definitely not a problem, although... I mean, we're not going to have much of this to dig out because this is our entrance. I don't want to screw around. I don't want to turn this into a mine. This is going to be our secure and safe entrance into our fortress. But I guess what we can do is we can come up. Once we've dug down and started creating our fortress, we can come up and mine this area out without necessarily interacting with the entrance. It's going to look ugly, but it'll give us our flux stone. Okay. We're sort of getting there. Let's see. I think we're good here. Alright, so this is going to be where we do everything to begin with. We're going to have our workshops here, our beds, and everything. But eventually what this is actually going to be is this is going to be the top level of the entrance. What's the word I'm looking for here? The tunnel. And it's going to be 2 Z levels, because the top Z level is going to house the fortifications, where our arrow dwarves and whatnot, our march dwarves, will hang out and pepper the enemies with arrows. And then as we get closer here, we're going to continue to go down, and we're going to have like a setup here with ballista. And so they'll be shooting... They'll be on this level, though. And they'll be shooting as the goblins run up, and then the goblins will go down another level before the ballista are done. So that's how that's going to work. So, but we're there now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to mine out quickly an area here. And we also want to get a drawbridge up as quick as possible. In fact, while we're working on that, let's just not mine out this area. That way we'll have a door here, which won't stop like trolls or anything, but it'll stop undead, hopefully. How are things going on the surface? We still only have a giant hamster, which is great. But our wagon just keeps getting nailed. Our woodcutter is doing his thing. I set up cutting the trees down in a particular order. So he's following that order, and that's good with me. Alright. And once again, it is raining repulsive goo. Now, none of our miners actually have skill in mining. I was hoping for a bit more soil than this. I didn't expect that they would go straight to Fluxstone, but I'm glad that we're getting so much Fluxstone. Eventually, though, it's going to stop as we get into the ocean tiles. Okay, but first things first now, let's get our zone set up here. And this will be our official meeting area. So we're going to go up to this zone here, and we're going to get rid of it. Actually, did I do? Nope, I didn't. Okay, let's remove the zone, done. But the dwarves are following it, so that's good. Alright, come on, guys. Yep, now everybody's underground. Just hanging out. We have struck some tetrahedrite. That's perfect for us because we're going to need silver weapons to create our warhammers. And once again, silver is preferable to steel in terms of warhammers because warhammers are all about heaviness, and silver is a heavy metal. And we're finally getting into what looks like the ocean tiles with this stone here. What kind of stone is it? Shale. Alright. Okay, so this is enough here. First we're going to get our initial stockpiles. We're going to go with a essentially everything stockpile. Let's find out where our zone ends. Okay, so we're going to go here. Stockpile. So let's start with furniture. Alright, whoops. Let's start with furniture. Alright. And we're going to go into it now. Change the settings. We're going to allow food, ammo, coins, bars, gems. We don't have any of the stuff, but I'm just going to throw everything on here. But obviously refuse, corpses, even animals because they'll be caged. And stone we're just going to leave lying around. But we also have to allow barrels and bins. Alright. So actually we got to dig some more. But we're running out of time, so we'll do that in the next episode. So essentially what's going to happen is I'm going to continue to dig out this tunnel. And I'll put workshops in there. I'll put beds. I'll get everything situated. I'll put a door here, which will keep us secure. And then finally, we'll be done with the surface for the time being. Eventually, we're going to have to go back up there and do some landscaping, build a little stone kind of, not even like a fortification, just a little like stone squat building to protect everything from the sky and from the falling ooze and whatnot. But that's really about it. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're excited about our new fortress of Lostknowledge, and let me know in the comments what you think. So once again, I am Marcus Aurelius. These are, of course, the Tales of Enthador. Have a good one.